That's good. Uh, okay, let me get started. Mm, mm. All of you can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Uh, okay, so I actually sent that introduction material to all of you. I think you might have seen that. Uh, so last class I discussed till this page. So what we shall do today, um, continue. So let's start with this page. Mm, if you see the top left picture, um, I'm showing a very simple cross section of a MOS transistor. I think based on whatever introductory classes you have, probably you should be able to recognize this simple structure. So this is the cross section of a MOS. If you see the top left, you have gate, source, and drain, and you have substrate. Hmm. So I'm not specifically telling whether it is NMOS or PMOS. Um, so what I'm saying is that few dimension definition like L gate. L gate is basically the channel length of the gate when you design the MOS transistor. That is L gate. Hmm. That is the design channel length. And then what you can see after fabrication or manufacturing, what happens, the source enters a little bit in gate region, drain enters a little bit in gate region. As a result, you can see there is overlap called LD. LD is the dimension telling how much overlap is there between source and gate versus drain and gate. And as you can see, the hash area is the silicon dioxide, that is the insulating layer for a MOS. So as a result, what happens from source end to drain end, the channel length that you see, we call L effective. And L effective is always less than L gate. Looks like somebody wants to enter. Uh, okay. So now, can any one of you guess that if it is NMOS, what will be the doping of source and drain? If you don't remember, you can give a guess based on your prior experience. Any idea? You heard about doping, right? N
Yes, sir.
type,
Yes, sir.
P type. Can you guess for an NMOS transistor what will be the source and drain doping?
P-type doping, sir.
No, it will be N type.
And
Source and
N-type.
drain decide the type. Ah. And automatically the substrate will be opposite type. This means P type. So for NMOS transistor, source drain are N type, substrate is P type. For PMOS transistor, source and drain are P type, substrate will be N type. Okay. So my interest here is only with this dimension. So let me, you can see it's a very simple mathematics, right? The relationship between L gate and L effective. L effective is L gate minus twice LD. Okay. So L effective is the physical channel length, and L gate is the actually the channel length that we draw or design. Okay. That is L gate. Now, how, why these dimensions are important? If you see, in this example, I'm talking about L gate of 45 nanometer, let's say. Okay. And for that process, LD typically turns out to be 10 nanometer. So L effective is L gate minus twice LD. that is 25 nanometer. Okay, so L effective is much less than L gate. Now, the way we define a technology, it is also called process node, is L gate value. So when I am saying a technology is 45 nanometer, it is actually L gate value, not L effective value. Okay, that is the definition I just wanted to establish here, nothing else. Now again, we have to remember that when I am shrinking the transistor with technology, I am actually shrinking all possible dimension, L, W, horizontal dimensions, vertical dimensions, depth, everything, right? So L gate is the representative number for a technology because that is the minimum feature size that we can manufacture. So L gate represents that minimum feature size. That is the only thing, key thing for this in this page. Now going forward, is clear, right? This definition? Yes.
Yes,
Any
sir.
technology, yes. Any technology we define by L gate, the drawn or design channel length. Now you will be able to understand what is going on with the evaluation or scaling of VLSI. In the left hand side, what I have written is the process node. In the middle column is basically we wrote that when the technology got introduced, the year, and the right hand side is the supply voltage. Let's focus on the left column, process node. I just defined the process node like 0.5 micron. This means what? L gate is 0.5. 0.35 micron means L gate is 0.35, like that. And if you see all these numbers, I have actually quoted up to 7 nanometer. And now the point is that these are not just random number to start with. There is a pattern, there is a relationship of these numbers. Okay, can you do some guess about the relationship of these numbers? There is a fantastic, a magic number hidden in all these numbers. Any guess? So if you cannot guess, I can give you the hints. Can you tell me 0.35 divided by 0.5 is what number?
0.7.
0.7, perfect. 0.25 by 0.35?
0.5.
0.25 by 0.35. It will come to 0.7, right? 0.18 by 0.25?
0.7.
Yeah. So this is what will continue till 7
Sir,
nanometer.
the left column value are gate length.
Exactly. L gate. That's what exactly. That's what I was trying to say. That is L gate. Okay. The drawn or design channel length as per previous picture. Right. And you can see with the technology advancement, that number is keep on reducing. Okay. And reducing with the ratio of 0.7. This means all the dimensions are reducing with the same ratio. And that is how the transistors are getting smaller and smaller. And as we have been discussing, right, from the next generation L gate to previous generation L gate, the ratio is always 0.7. So why 0.7 is so important? So see, what happens is that if one dimension scale by 0.7 L, the other dimension is W, right? That also scale by 0.7. Okay. Maybe I can show you a very quick picture of the whole thing. You'll be able to understand because I have not yet started transistors properly. Let's see this picture, right? But I'm saying this L, right? In this picture, it's a very idealistic transistor. There is no LD. So L gate and L effective is kind of same. So let's say that is that L, and in the other dimension, the transistor width is called W, right? If L scale by 0.7, W will also scale by 0.7, as I was telling you, right? You are miniaturizing the whole transistor from all dimension. So if L scale by 0.7, W scale by 0.7, what is the area scaling? Any guess?
49.
0.49, perfect, right? 0.7 into 0.7. Say you can now approximate it to 0.5. This means what? Transistor area will be 50%. Correct? If transistor area is 50%, then what will happen? When you go to next technology, in the same silicon area, now you can put double number of transistor because transistor area got reduced by 50%, correct? And that is called Moore's law. That is the Moore's law I was talking about the other day, right? Every 18 months, number of transistors get doubled in the same silicon area. And this is the reason. To achieve that, this type of scaling is needed. Is this concept clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So another thing you see that as Moore's told, right, 18 months, but in reality what happened? In every 2 years actually, technologists came up with the new technology. 93, 95, 97, 99, pretty much it maintained 2 years cadence. Second observation is that there are two zones. One is green zone, one is yellow zone. In green zone, if you see carefully, what is L gate? L gate is above 0.1 micrometer. Anything L gate above 0.1 micrometer, we are saying green zone, which is called submicron technology. Anything below 0.1 micrometer L gate, we say yellow zone, which is deep submicron technology. That is the definition. Submicron means L gate should be above 0.1 micron. Deep submicron means L gate should be below 0.1 micron. So when we are going below 0.1 micron, we are actually changing the unit to nanometer. So now can you remember what is the relationship between micrometer and nanometer?
And 10 to the power 3
10 to
nanometer
the
is equal
power
to 1
3
micrometer.
nanometer.
1000
1000.
nanometer is 1 micrometer. You are right, 10 to the power 3, absolutely right. 1000 nanometer is 1 micrometer. So once L gate becomes less than 100 nanometer or 0.1 micrometer, we enter into yellow zone. Okay, like 90 nanometer, 65 and so on. Now, another definition is that if you see the previous slide here, I defined the ULSI group, maximum number of transistor 2 to the power 26, which is 64 million. And that was enabled by green type technologies. So green type technologies enabled ULSI design. Now for GSI, what I told, up to 2 billion, 2 to the power 31, that many transistors. To enable that many transistors in a microchip, we entered into yellow zone. And yellow zone is basically, see, the L gate is represented everything in terms of nanometer. So that is called nanotechnology. Okay, so deep submicron technology and nanotechnology both are synonymous. Okay. Now, another interesting thing, if you continue like this, from 22 nanometer onwards, all transistors I am showing like 3D transistor. So it is called actually FinFET. This is for your general information. I shall not teach you that level of advanced transistor is not needed. But this is for general information. If you go to market today, any electronic device, if you want to buy, somebody is trying to enter. So any electronic device that you want to buy in the market today, be it cell phone, laptop, notebook, netbook, desktop, server, whatever you want to buy, right? All technology that is being used is now within this zone, 22 nanometer or 14 nanometer or 10 nanometer or 7 nanometer. 7 nanometer, I think, has just started entering into market. But let me give you some idea how small these dimensions we are talking about. Let's say if I ask you the thickness of hair, our hair, right? The thickness, it is basically 100 micron, 125 micrometer. Now see these devices, right? 1,000 times smaller than thickness of hair, right? Now you will be wondering how we can make like 2 billion transistor and each one of nanometer size. How is it possible? It is only possible because we make the whole design through computer aided design, and then directly transfer the design to manufacturing. There is no concept called breadboard like you used to do like digital lab, right? You put some IC chip or transistors in a breadboard, make some connection. There is no concept like that in VLSI world. Everything is done by computer aided design. And when you do computer aided design means it's the world, right, where all CSC people are most comfortable, right? This whole and the reason is this, right? You have to manage 2 billion transistors in a very systematic, automated way, where each transistor size in the range of nanometer, right? So we do all VLSI design through computer-aided design. Okay. So actually, when I started working at Intel, right? So I worked from 90 nanometer till 14 nanometer. The first two generation, 9065 was Pentium 4. Last two generation of Pentium 4. The other four I worked on I-Core, i3, i5, i7 architecture. Right now, as I'm doing consultancy, I work on 7 nanometer. So now I shall give you more idea about this technology. But interesting thing is the right hand side also, right? If you see the VDD, that's the supply voltage. Now, there is a correlation between process node number and VDD number in green zone. What is the correlation? Any guess? It's actually very easy correlation, right?
Yes, sir. Into 10.
Into 10.
10
Only
times. 10 times.
absolutely. Only difference is the unit, right?
Yes, sir, into 10.
Yes, exactly. One in micrometer, one in voltage. That's it, right? Otherwise, it's very easy to remember. If you know the process node number, you immediately know what is going to be the VDD. Okay. But that relationship is not maintained once you enter into yellow zone. There is a lot of physics behind it. I shall not definitely going to discuss all those, but for your information, the way technology keep on scaling, we could not scale supply voltage that way. In fact, today most of the chips operate in 1 volt range. Chips don't operate, microchip do not operate like 0.4, 0.5 volt range. It's not possible. But so that is a distinction between supply voltage in green zone versus yellow zone. So that is another important observation. So, any question on this page?
The GSI full form I forgot.
Gigascale integration. G for giga. Now, can you tell me what is ULSI?
The ultra large scale integration.
Good. Very good. Okay, good. So actually, the last class I showed you this page about the number of transistors with all those integration, VLSI, ULSI, GSI, TSI, and this page I am showing how that was enabled through nanometer devices. Okay, so these two pages basically summarize 40 years of VLSI design and technology growth. So so it's very important, and these numbers as a relationship is very easy to remember also that way. So since I was telling you about the technology and evaluation, now you know all these companies who actually manufacture microchip. So today, world leader in manufacturing is TSMC. Did you hear the name?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me the full form of TSMC?
Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
Yes, company or corporation, rather multinational company. We say always corporation. So that's perfect. Very good. Then there is something called, see, TSMC is definitely, as the name suggests, it's a Taiwan-based company, multinational company. Global Foundry is basically US-based. Then Samsung. Can you tell me from which country Samsung came up?
Sir, Korea and
South Korea.
South Korea.
South Korea. Yeah, obviously Intel is there. All of you know Texas Instruments, right? It's another US-based company. Actually, then there are lots of companies. I think some of you can recognize. Micron, did you hear about the company name Micron? It's a world leader in memory. It's a world leader memory company. NXP Semiconductor, bolo. Wanted to say something?
No, sir.
Okay. So NXP Semiconductor is basically came up from the Philips. This is basically the semiconductor division of Philips. On Semiconductor is another very famous company. Toshiba is a Japan-based company. ST Microelectronics is Europe-based company.
Sir,
Fujitsu is Bolo.
sir, Micron is a US based.
Micron is US-based. You are right. Micron is US-based. Yes. Then Fujitsu is Japan-based. So these are the big companies who actually manufacture. Okay. Now this number is not big actually. Each manufacturing company, like each multinational, probably has 100 to 150 branches, right? Or design center all over the world, right? In fact, all this company has branches in Bangalore. Okay. Now, interesting thing is that why these companies are not that many. Okay, these manufacturing companies. The reason is that if you want to manufacture, let's say, this technology, this range, right? 22 nanometer to 7 nanometer, right? The cost of each factory to develop this manufacturing is $5 billion. Now you can imagine how many companies has $5 billion, right? So that is why this number is very limited. Now the question is, then how this industry is so big? What happens is that out of all these manufacturing company, most of them is design company also. For example, Intel design manufacture, Texas Instruments design manufacture, right? Micron design manufacture. So what happens is that these big companies, they basically give some small project like a block or module to small and medium-sized company. So they make those blocks and give back to big companies. Ultimately, big companies put the microchip together and send for manufacturing. This is how this model works, and this is where lots of small to medium-sized VLSI company comes into picture. They don't do the whole project, not possible. They only do a block or sub block, but that block sub block itself is big, right? So they may be individually handling hundreds of millions of transistors, where the chip may be billions of transistors, right? So as we go more, I shall tell you more about this whole business policy, how these companies in this industry interact with each other. But today, when you talk about the latest greatest technologies from 22 nanometer down to 7 nanometer, these are the 4 leader in the world. When I was at Intel, that time Intel was number 1. Today, actually, TSMC took over. In fact, out of Intel revenue of manufacturing, 50% comes from TSMC. So TSMC and Samsung. In our time, Samsung's existence was almost not there in semiconductor industry. Today, they are like, if you talk about design and manufacturing, Samsung is the world leader, not Intel anymore. So this is how it is, right? As we go, I can discuss more about this. Somebody wants to join, looks like. No. Good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about today's market demand. Where we see the market, electronic industry. Almost all devices are portable handheld device, right? Everybody wants to use this type of device. Everything wireless, very easy to use, light, etc. Right? And the next is the number of transistors keep on increasing. That is why we have system on chip. That is always the trend. And finally the long battery lifetime. So what it basically is telling that each microchip should dissipate minimum amount of power, right? That will only enable long battery lifetime. So this means more feature, more transistors, at the same time low power, right? This is basically today's market trend. Now, to satisfy the market trend, this is a single page summary of VLSI design criteria. Whether you do the whole microchip, whether you do a block of it, some module of it, some block of it, this is pretty much the criteria all of us have to follow. Whenever I am showing it downward arrow, this means it has to be less, and upward arrow means it has to be more. For example, you start with the die size, right? Die size means the silicon area. See, whatever module you make, you have to fit in with minimum silicon area. Then comes the performance. There are three types of performance. First is architectural feature. It is always upward, right? With more advanced technology, with more transistors, you can put more architectural feature. Power has to be low, right? And the speed, the frequency of operation also has to be high, right? And then cost has to be low, right? That's where the business is, and this cost is directly related to area, right? If you can make the whole thing in smaller silicon area, then the cost per product will go down. So that was the key motivation for Moore's law. So the other day I was talking about, right, in the era of inflation, electronic product cost is going down because of this advanced technology. You need really less area to manufacture lots of transistor. And very important term is the time to market, TTM. This means starting from the planning of the product to final launch of the product to market, that time should be minimized. And that is where we need lots of automation and coding, right? Just manual design will not enable that. When you are handling billion of transistors in one microchip and you have to make the product in 6 months to 1 year, it is impossible to do manually. Okay, so that is the importance of automations and algorithms and all. And definitely testability. This means with more complex microchip, you should be able to test it. Okay, so that's the last thing. So high level is you got it, right? These are the key parameters that we always look for any microchip design. Any question? So if I ask you, let's say in market today, right? You go to buy any laptop or notebook. What is the typical speed that you see in the market?
2.4 gigahertz.
Perfect. 1 gigahertz, 2 gigahertz, pretty much that range. In fact, interesting is even 10 years back, the range was similar. So naturally, some doubt may come why the speed is not increasing to 10 gigahertz, 15 gigahertz. The simple reason is power. Okay, if you want to basically control the power, then you have to operate in relatively lower frequency. So today the importance of power is extremely high. For a high dissipating power device, nobody will buy in the market. Okay, so that's a good answer. So now this is a very interesting slide which also kind of summarizes the importance of automations and all. Let's share this picture with you. What are the trend and challenge in VLSI design? So in the left column, what I'm showing is in 1990s, that is the time when what type of microchip we used to design and manufacture versus what we do today in the right hand side. So I shall show you like row by row. You'll be able to appreciate whatever I have discussed already in introduction. Most of I kind of covered. For example, the first row, right? We used to do million transistors in 1990s. Today we do billion transistors, 1,000 times more easily. The process technology, ALGAT, used to be like 0.5 micron, 0.35 micron range. Today we are talking about nano device. 45 nanometer, 32 nanometer, 22 and beyond, right? Up to 7 nanometer in market today. Operating frequency used to be in megahertz. Today we are talking about gigahertz. Again, 1,000 times more frequency. Previously, it used to be 3-4 layer of interconnect wiring. If you remember, I showed you one silicon picture with metal 1, 2, 3, 4. They are various layers, right? Today, with so many transistors to connect, you have to go up to 10, 11 layers of interconnect. So that's where the complexity also increased. Okay. The next row is that it used to be always single core design till Pentium 4. You know, whatever processor used to come in market, all were single core. But today we talk about multi-core SoC design. Multi-core means many core. I already discussed about it, right? Like quad core, dual core, quad core, then 8 core, 16 core, 32 core, like that. And all design today are SoC, system on chip. So previously it used to be very low, less architectural feature, very basic feature only. Today, you know, we want to use all sorts of app, right? So naturally that will increase the hardware complexity, right? So 10x architectural complexity. And I was giving you the hint before, right? Previously, absolutely no focus on power. But today, all electronic design is low power design. So now you can see very clearly what used to be, you know, 20, 30 years back and what is today. And how to enable that. So that is where the last portion is very important. Less CAD automation, it used to be, right? Computer aided design automation was less, more manual design. And today, it is more CAD automation and less manual design. Without CAD automation, with time to market, like within 6 to month to 1 year, you know, with this level of complexity, automation is the only way to go. Okay, is the motivation clear? Any question in this slide?
No, sir.
Good. So this will basically complete my introduction part. Actually, if you think about it, high level, there are two areas I generally, you know, so in Intel, what happened, like under my group, 50% of my team member were from EC background and 50% was from CSC background. So the reason for that is there are two distinct areas where CSC, you know, students can contribute a lot. One is automation itself, right? Where you can use all these smart algorithm as long as you know very good coding, understand algorithm, which is pretty much your core expertise, you'll be able to flourish. And the second area is basically the front end design, which I shall explain later more. Front end means basically logic or architecture design using VHDL or Verilog. So you have done one course on VHDL. Unfortunately, today nobody use VHDL. Everybody use Verilog. So my plan is to introduce Verilog in this course, which is more, it's another skill to be developed. And Verilog is very easy actually. It's just C-like. You just need a little bit of intuition to code. And since you have done already something in VHDL, Verilog will be even more easy actually. So we have a plan to do that in our lab. We have to see when we can enable lab, at least online. But at least I have all open source tool ready. At least I can definitely give few demo while going through these classes about using some of the open source tool. But Verilog is another very important language, hardware description language. If you can develop the skill in it, there is a lot of job opportunity there also. Okay. And you know what type of circuit we code using VHDL because you have already gone through that lab course. So Verilog, you can just guess, right, what type of design we are going to do. So fundamentally, algorithms, programming, and Verilog design. This is the key area that you guys can focus with a basic understanding of the design. That's what we call the domain knowledge. If you have domain knowledge, the basic background, and if you have all those skills, you can be very successful in semiconductor industry if you are interested to make career in this area. Okay, so what I shall do, since the next topic will be directly, I shall start with transistors. So this kind of covers the introduction, so I shall not start the new topic today. In fact, the material that I posted, I think most of you might have already seen it. That material covers till this page. Okay. Any question?
Sir, in lab, that Verilog will use that that Vivado solver.
Vivado, exactly. So I think you have done Vivado, but yeah, means so you already know that Vivado, right? Only instead of VHDL, we shall use Verilog. Now, if it turns out that you have to do online lab, then I kind of figured out one Verilog compiler. You guys may start looking into it. It is called iVerilog. You can download it also if you like. If you give a Google search iVerilog, you will find that you can easily download. It's an open source tool. That is, I may use if it turns out that college decided to go for online lab. Okay. But if we do in real college lab, yeah, we shall use Vivado. And all of you already know Vivado because so what used to happen is that I think all your CSC faculties, they used to basically, take the server from my lab. I don't know whether you guys have noticed or not.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the server is sitting in my VLSI lab, Vivado. Yeah. Good. Any other question from anybody? Okay, then that's all for today. Thank you all. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So what about the attendance?
Attendance.